Linda Maria Ronstadt was born on July 15, 1946, in Tucson, Arizona, into a family that embodied a rich blend of cultural traditions and artistic sensibilities. Her father, Gilbert Ronstadt, was a successful businessman of German-Mexican heritage, and her mother, Ruth Mary Kochman Ronstadt, had a strong Midwestern background. Linda grew up in a household that valued music, storytelling, and history. Her family's ranch was often filled with the sounds of Mexican canciones, classical music, Broadway tunes, and country western melodies, providing her with an eclectic soundtrack that would shape her diverse musical style later in life. From an early age, Linda showed a deep interest in music. Encouraged by her family, she and her siblings would sing harmonies together at home, often performing folk and traditional songs for family gatherings. Her father played a pivotal role in fostering her love for Mexican folk songs, teaching her pieces from the ranchera tradition that stayed close to her heart throughout her life. At the same time, Linda was captivated by the voices of singers like Hank Williams, Billie Holiday, and Frank Sinatra, drawing inspiration from their ability to tell stories through song. Her formal education included time at Catalina High School in Tucson, where she participated in school choirs and musical activities. While she briefly attended Arizona State University, her ambition soon pulled her toward a more daring path. At the age of 18, Ronstadt made the bold decision to move to Los Angeles, determined to pursue a career in music. With little more than her voice, a guitar, and unshakable determination, she entered the city's burgeoning folk rock scene during the early 1960s. Her first major step came when she formed the trio The Stone Ponies with Bobby Kimmel and Kenny Edwards in 1965. The group blended folk harmonies with rock influences, capturing the spirit of the era's shifting musical landscape. In 1967, they achieved significant success with their hit Different Drum, written by Michael Nesmith of the Monkees. Linda's soaring, emotional vocals carried the song to the top of the charts, quickly establishing her as the group's standout star. The single's success propelled the band into the spotlight, but it also foreshadowed Linda's inevitable solo career, as critics and fans alike began to recognize her extraordinary vocal gift. By 1969, Ronstadt was ready to embark on her solo journey. She released her debut solo album, Hand-Sewn Homegrown, which is often credited as the first alternative country record by a female artist. While it did not achieve massive commercial success at the time, the album showcased her ability to fuse traditional country sounds with rock and pop elements. This fusion would become her trademark style, distinguishing her from her peers and positioning her as one of the pioneers of the emerging country rock movement. The early years of her career were not without struggle. The music industry was still male-dominated, and Linda often had to fight to be taken seriously as a female lead in rock and country settings. Touring was grueling, money was scarce, and she faced doubts from record executives who were uncertain about how to market her unique blend of influences. Yet Linda's resilience and authenticity set her apart. She poured herself into every performance, captivating audiences with her unmatched vocal range and emotional depth. Her early collaborations also played an important role in shaping her career. Ronstadt performed with a number of up-and-coming musicians in Los Angeles who would later go on to form the Eagles. Don Henley, Glenn Frey, Bernie Leeton, and Randy Meisner all played in her backing band before launching their own legendary careers. These connections positioned Linda at the heart of the Southern California music scene, a hub that would dominate popular music throughout the 1970s. By the close of the 1960s, Linda Ronstadt had already begun to distinguish herself as a force to be reckoned with. Though she was still finding her footing as a solo artist, her combination of country roots, folk sensibility, and rock energy gave her an edge in a rapidly evolving industry. She stood at the threshold of stardom, armed with an extraordinary voice, an adventurous spirit, and a determination to carve out her own path in music. The foundation of her career, the cultural richness of her childhood, the fearless leap to Los Angeles, the breakthrough with Different Drum, and her early solo explorations laid the groundwork for the extraordinary heights she would soon reach. Linda Ronstadt's story was only beginning, but even in her early years, it was clear she was destined to become one of the most versatile and influential female vocalists of her generation. By the early 1970s, Linda Ronstadt had transformed from a promising folk rock singer into one of the most powerful and versatile voices in popular music. The years that followed marked the height of her career, a golden era that not only established her as a superstar but also redefined the possibilities for women in the music industry. Her first taste of true solo breakthrough came with the 1974 album Heart Like a Wheel. The record was a revelation. It captured Linda's country roots while embracing the rock and pop sensibilities that had been bubbling within the Southern California music scene. Featuring iconic tracks like You Are No Good, which became her first #1 single, and the heartfelt ballad When Will I Be Loved, the album was both a commercial and critical triumph. Heart Like a Wheel earned her a Grammy Award and cemented her status as one of the era's most distinctive voices. From this point forward, Ronstadt entered a period of unprecedented success. Between the mid-1970s and the early 1980s, she released a string of multi-platinum albums that consistently topped the charts. Records such as Prisoner in Disguise, 1975, Hasten Down the Wind, 1976, Simple Dreams, 1977, and Living in the USA, 1978, showcased her versatility. She moved effortlessly between rock anthems, tender ballads, and country standards, proving that she could master virtually any genre. Her 1977 album Simple Dreams represented the pinnacle of this success. With hits like Blue Bayou, It's So Easy, and her stunning cover of the Rolling Stones' Tumbling Dice, the album dominated the charts, knocking Fleetwood Mac's Rumors out of the #1 position. That same year, Ronstadt became the most successful female rock singer in the world, with record sales soaring into the millions and her face appearing on the covers of Time, Rolling Stone, and Newsweek. She was dubbed the Queen of Rock and became a cultural icon of the decade. One of Linda's greatest strengths was her unparalleled ability to interpret songs. She often took material originally written and performed by others ranging from Buddy Holly to Roy Orbison to the Rolling Stones and reimagined it with her own emotional intensity and vocal power. Far from being just a cover artist, she transformed these songs into definitive versions, often introducing them to new generations of listeners. Live performance was another arena where Ronstadt shone brightly. Touring relentlessly during the height of her career, she captivated audiences in sold-out arenas and stadiums across the country. Backed by some of the finest musicians in the industry, including future members of the Eagles, her concerts were electrifying displays of passion, range, and technical brilliance. Fans were enthralled not only by her powerhouse vocals but also by her natural charisma, which made her both relatable and larger than life. Her collaborations further enriched this peak period. Ronstadt's friendship with Dolly Parton and Emmylou Harris led to the creation of the acclaimed Trio project in the mid-1980s, a collaboration that produced harmonies of breathtaking beauty and won widespread acclaim. Even before that, she had become a key figure in the Los Angeles music scene, frequently working alongside musicians like Jackson Browne, J.D. Souther, and Warren Zevon. Equally significant was Ronstadt's refusal to be confined to a single genre. While she dominated the rock and pop charts, she also explored country, folk, and later even ventured into opera and traditional Mexican music. This artistic bravery during her peak years earned her respect from critics and peers alike, demonstrating that she was not just chasing commercial success but also seeking artistic fulfillment. By the close of the 1970s, Linda Ronstadt had become the most successful female recording artist in the world. Her album sold millions of copies, she filled stadiums, and her face was everywhere in the media. Yet what set her apart was not only her commercial dominance but also her ability to transcend boundaries. She was not simply a rock star or a country singer, she was a musical chameleon whose voice carried across genres and cultures. The peak of Linda Ronstadt's career was not just a story of fame and fortune, it was a redefinition of what it meant to be a female artist in popular music. She broke barriers, shattered stereotypes, and proved that women could command a stage with the same power, charisma, and commercial clout as their male counterparts. Her reign during the 1970s and early 1980s remains one of the most remarkable periods in music history, marking her as not just a star of her time but a timeless icon. Though Linda Ronstadt's career soared to dazzling heights, her journey was not free from challenges, controversies, and personal crises. Behind the platinum records and glowing magazine covers, she grappled with the pressures of fame, the complexities of artistic ambition, and moments of public criticism that tested her resilience. One of the first challenges she faced was the struggle of being a woman in a male-dominated industry during the 1970s. While she was hailed as the Queen of Rock, critics often diminished her success by portraying her as dependent on male musicians and songwriters. Many of the men she collaborated with, such as members of the Eagles or Jackson Browne, were treated as creative geniuses, while Ronstadt was sometimes unfairly labeled as merely a singer of other people's songs. This criticism overlooked the interpretive brilliance she brought to her performances, and it often frustrated Ronstadt, who felt her artistry was misunderstood. Another source of controversy stemmed from her refusal to conform to the image that the industry tried to impose upon her. At the height of her fame, Ronstadt became a media fixation, with her personal life, especially her romantic relationships, often overshadowing her music. Her high-profile romances, such as with California Governor Jerry Brown and later with filmmaker George Lucas, fueled tabloids. Ronstadt disliked this intrusion, finding it reductive and distracting from her true identity as a musician. Her outspoken political views also courted controversy. In a time when many artists avoided taking stances that could alienate audiences, Ronstadt was unafraid to voice her opinions. Throughout her career, she spoke candidly about social issues, women's rights, and American foreign policy. This came to a head in 2004, when she praised filmmaker Michael Moore and his documentary Fahrenheit 9/11 during a concert in Las Vegas. The comment sparked outrage among certain audience members, leading to boos, torn posters, and even Ronstadt being escorted out of the venue. The incident made national headlines and ignited debates about the role of politics in entertainment. While some applauded her courage, others condemned her for mixing art with activism. On a personal level, Ronstadt also faced crises that went beyond the public eye. The relentless demands of touring and recording in the 1970s and 1980s often left her exhausted and searching for balance. She admitted in interviews that she sometimes felt trapped by her own success, expected to deliver hit after hit while yearning for greater creative freedom. This tension partly fueled her decision to take artistic risks, such as venturing into opera with the Pirates of Penzance or exploring her Mexican heritage with Canciones de mi Padre. Though critically praised, these projects baffled some fans and industry executives who questioned why she would step away from the formula that made her a superstar. The greatest personal crisis, however, would come later in her life, long after her commercial peak. In the early 2000s, Ronstadt began to notice that her once effortless singing voice was faltering. Notes she had mastered with ease now felt unreachable. For a performer whose identity was inseparable from her voice, this was devastating. After years of uncertainty, she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, later revised to progressive supranuclear palsy, a rare neurological disorder, which ultimately forced her to retire from singing. For someone who had built her life around music, the diagnosis was a heartbreaking blow. "I can't sing a note," she admitted in interviews, a stark contrast to the powerhouse vocalist who once dominated arenas. Despite the crises and controversies, Linda Ronstadt never lost her integrity. Whether defying critics who dismissed her artistry, challenging fans with bold creative choices, or weathering the pain of illness, she remained unyielding in her authenticity. Her struggles humanized her, revealing the vulnerability behind the icon. Far from tarnishing her legacy, These moments of turbulence highlighted her courage to live truthfully, both as an artist and as a woman. For Linda Ronstadt, the journey of rebirth and return did not follow the traditional arc of a singer staging a dramatic comeback on stage. Instead, her resurrection took place on a deeper, more personal level, as she reinvented herself outside the conventional confines of superstardom. Even as her health forced her to retire from singing, Ronstadt found new ways to express her creativity, reclaim her heritage, and ensure her voice would resonate far beyond her performing years. Her first significant act of reinvention occurred in the late 1980s, when she boldly stepped away from the rock and roll sound that had made her a global icon. Instead, she embraced her cultural roots by recording Canciones de mi Padre, 1987, a heartfelt tribute to the traditional Mexican ranchera music her father had introduced to her as a child. Critics were initially skeptical, questioning whether the world's most famous female rock star could succeed in a completely different genre. The album not only silenced doubters but became the best-selling non-English language record in American music history. For Ronstadt, it was more than just a commercial triumph. It was a homecoming, a return to her family's musical legacy and an affirmation of identity. This move opened the door to other ambitious projects. She delved into jazz standards, recording albums like What's New, 1983, with the Nelson Riddle Orchestra, which reintroduced the Great American Songbook to a younger audience. She also embraced opera and Broadway, performing in Gilbert and Sullivan's The Pirates of Penzance, which earned her a Tony Award nomination. Each of these endeavors was a form of rebirth, as she continually redefined herself, refusing to let the industry pigeonhole her as just a rock singer. Her journey of return also extended into her personal life. After years of intense media scrutiny over her relationships, Ronstadt chose to step away from the glare of Hollywood and focus on building a family. In the 1990s, she adopted 2 children, Mary and Carlos, a decision she described as her most fulfilling and transformative experience. Motherhood grounded her, providing joy and stability amidst the shifting tides of fame and health challenges. The true test of her resilience came when her neurological condition gradually robbed her of her singing voice. For most artists, this would have marked the end of their creative journey. Yet Ronstadt found new ways to connect with her audience. In 2013, she released her memoir Simple Dreams, an intimate account of her life, career, and struggles. The book was widely praised, offering fans a chance to understand the woman behind the music. Around the same time, she began appearing at speaking events, sharing stories of her career and heritage with humor, candor, and wisdom. Though she could no longer sing, she found her voice again in storytelling. Her return was further solidified in 2019, when she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a recognition long overdue. That same year, the documentary Linda Ronstadt, The Sound of My Voice was released, celebrating her career and influence. The film introduced her to a new generation of listeners while offering longtime fans a poignant reminder of her extraordinary artistry. Watching her life unfold on screen allowed audiences to see not only her triumphs but also the grace with which she faced adversity. In many ways, Linda Ronstadt's resurrection was not about reclaiming her place on the charts but about transcending the limitations imposed by time, illness, and industry expectations. By embracing her roots, sharing her stories, and mentoring younger artists, she ensured that her influence extended far beyond her own voice. Her journey demonstrated that an artist's legacy does not end when the music stops. It evolves, deepens, and continues to inspire in new and profound ways. Thus, Linda Ronstadt's path of rebirth was not a single comeback performance, but a lifelong process of reinvention and renewal. She reminded the world that while a voice may fade, the spirit behind it can remain timeless, echoing in culture, memory, and history. Linda Ronstadt's legacy is not confined to the glitter of platinum records or the sold-out arenas that once thundered with her voice. Her true influence lies in the breadth of her artistry, the courage with which she defied convention, and the inspiration she has given to generations of musicians across genres and cultures. Few artists in American music have left behind such a vast and multidimensional legacy. At the heart of her influence is her unmatched versatility. Ronstadt was never content to remain within the boundaries of one style. She moved fluidly between rock, country, pop, jazz, Broadway, opera, and Latin music, elevating each genre with her interpretive brilliance. In doing so, she challenged the rigid categories of the music industry, proving that an artist's identity could be expansive rather than confined. This versatility has inspired countless singers from Sheryl Crow and Trisha Yearwood to Adele and Casey Musgraves, who cite Ronstadt as proof that women can break molds and chart their own artistic paths. Her interpretive power also redefined the role of the vocalist. While many critics initially dismissed her as simply a song interpreter because she did not write most of her own material, her ability to transform other writers' songs into unforgettable experiences was itself an act of artistry. Songs like You Are No Good, Blue Bayou, and Different Drum became definitive not because she wrote them, but because she inhabited them with a depth of emotion and authenticity that made them timeless. In this sense, Ronstadt elevated the art of interpretation to its highest form, paving the way for singers who similarly rely on reimagining material rather than composing it. Her cultural impact extends beyond music. With Canciones de mi Padre, Ronstadt brought Mexican-American heritage into the mainstream spotlight at a time when Latino music was largely sidelined in the American industry. She not only honored her father's heritage but also educated audiences, sparking new appreciation for mariachi and ranchera traditions. This work influenced future generations of Latin artists who sought to blend their cultural roots with popular music, reinforcing Ronstadt's role as a pioneer of cross-cultural artistry. Ronstadt's legacy is also defined by her fearless authenticity. She spoke openly about social and political issues, challenging the notion that musicians should remain apolitical. From environmental concerns to women's rights and immigration reform, she used her platform to amplify causes she believed in, inspiring artists to see their influence as extending beyond the stage. Her 2004 controversy in Las Vegas, while polarizing, cemented her reputation as someone unafraid to speak truth to power, regardless of the consequences. Equally significant is the personal courage with which she has faced illness. Her neurological condition may have silenced her singing voice, but it also illuminated the enduring power of her legacy. By speaking candidly about her struggles, Ronstadt has become a symbol of resilience and dignity. Her memoir Simple Dreams and the documentary The Sound of My Voice allowed fans to understand her not just as a superstar, but as a woman of depth, humor, and humanity. In this way, her legacy is not only musical but deeply human. Awards and accolades further affirm her influence: multiple Grammy Awards, induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and recognition for her contributions to American and Latin music. Yet beyond trophies, her true legacy is found in the countless artists who continue to draw inspiration from her trailblazing path, and in the millions of listeners whose lives were touched by the purity and passion of her voice. Linda Ronstadt's story demonstrates that a legacy is not about permanence on the charts, but about transformation in the culture. She expanded the possibilities of what it means to be a female artist, an interpreter, and a cultural bridge builder. Long after her voice fell silent, the echoes of her influence continue to inspire new generations. In the grand narrative of American music, Linda Ronstadt stands not merely as a star, but as a beacon of artistic courage, cultural pride, and timeless authenticity. For Linda Ronstadt, a woman who lived her life in song, the greatest sorrow was not simply one moment of heartbreak but a profound, lingering grief, the loss of her singing voice. This was not just a career setback, it was the silencing of the very gift that had defined her life, her identity, and her connection to the world. For an artist whose voice had soared across genres, captured the hearts of millions, and served as her truest form of self-expression, the inability to sing became a devastating burden. In the late 2000s, Ronstadt began to notice subtle changes in her ability to control her voice. Notes that once came effortlessly now felt strained. The clarity and strength that had been her trademark seemed to slip away. At first, She attributed it to aging, perhaps the natural decline every singer fears. But as the condition worsened, she faced the heartbreaking realization that something much deeper was wrong. Eventually, doctors diagnosed her with progressive supranuclear palsy, PSP, a rare neurological disorder often mistaken for Parkinson's disease. The diagnosis confirmed her worst fear: she would never sing again. For Ronstadt, this was not merely the end of a career, it was the loss of her most essential form of communication. Singing was not only her livelihood but her language, her way of navigating joy, sorrow, and love. In interviews, she admitted that she no longer even sang casually around the house. "The silence," she said, "felt like having part of your body removed." This profound sorrow weighed heavily on her, and though she faced it with remarkable grace, it was a wound that could never fully heal. Her grief was compounded by other personal losses. Over the years, Ronstadt endured the heartbreak of seeing friends and fellow musicians pass away, artists with whom she had shared the stage, the studio, and her most formative years. The deaths of colleagues like Glenn Frey of the Eagles, with whom she had a close early bond, reminded her of the passage of time and the fragility of life in music. These losses deepened her sense of vulnerability and underscored the emotional toll of being part of a generation of artists now aging into history. Yet, perhaps her deepest sorrow beyond the loss of her voice was the quiet solitude she chose in her personal life. Despite her great loves, most famously her high-profile relationship with California Governor Jerry Brown and her engagement to filmmaker George Lucas, Ronstadt never married. In later interviews, she admitted she had longed for stability in relationships but never found it in the ways she imagined. Though she found immense joy in adopting her 2 children, Mary and Carlos, and often described motherhood as her greatest blessing, there was still a wistful recognition that some aspects of love and companionship had eluded her. Nevertheless, Linda Ronstadt's way of facing sorrow was uniquely her own. Instead of succumbing to despair, she redirected her voice into new forms. She wrote her memoir Simple Dreams, sharing her journey with honesty and wit. She became a storyteller at public events, captivating audiences not with her singing but with her humor, insights, and wisdom. And she remained deeply engaged with music not as a performer but as a cultural custodian, celebrating her Mexican heritage and mentoring young artists who sought guidance. Her greatest sorrow, then, became a paradox. The loss of her voice also became the space where her courage, resilience, and humanity shone brightest. By confronting grief openly, she allowed fans to see her not only as a superstar but as a woman navigating the universal struggles of aging, illness, and change. Her silence, painful as it was, became another kind of song, one that spoke of endurance, authenticity, and the enduring spirit of an artist who refused to let sorrow define her. In the end, Linda Ronstadt's greatest sorrow is inseparable from her legacy. It reminds the world that even icons are not immune to loss, that even voices that once seemed eternal can fall silent. Yet it also shows that true artistry transcends sound. Though she could no longer sing, Linda Ronstadt continued to inspire, proving that while the voice may vanish, the song of a life lived with passion never fades.